Planning as an activity. Planning is a household word today. Perhaps there is no sphere of activity where planning is not used in one context or the other these days. Though planning is an instrument of aiming at future and has been in vogue in business since long time. Its use at a macro level for the gearing up of operation of government towards the attainment of certain targets is of recent origin. Our 5 years plan are an example of macro level planning for the achievement of target aimed at increasing the standard of living of our people. Planning thus means having a view of the future and deciding in advance where we would like to be and what is to be done in order to reach there. Planning starts with the definition of the objectives and the formulations of the specific goals or targets to be achieved. Goals are derived from the analysis of existing situations of an organization and once defined provide a sense of direction to all managerial activities in order to achieve the goals. Specific plans are drawn up. Objectives, goals, or targets provides answer to the question where is the organization heading to. Planning is essentially concerned with the future since future conditions are unknown. Forecasts or estimates must be made to provide a basis for planning. You will appreciate that better forecasts lead to better planning for future, while most forecasts are made intuitively or on the basis of experience. Mathematical tools have been seen developed to make more accurate forecasts. Planning is done by manager at all levels of organization. You will see that all managers plan through the character and breed at planning may differ at different level of organization. For example, while an assistant engineer at work site plans for accomplishment of work at his site from day to day or for 2 or 3 days in advance, the chief project manager must plan for the whole project over a larger period of time. Similarly, a multinational company's top management must plan over a longer time frame for a worldwide market. Planning is a mean to some end as such involves choice among alternatives goals, alternative programs and alternative means of achievement. What alternatives to choose gives rise to decision making which every manager will be required to do. Question: do you plan your day? How? Do you plan for your holiday vacations? How and why? Have you actively participated in the planning of some big events like an annual function of your college or the marriage of a female relative of yours? Recapitulate recapitulate how the event was planned. If you have given to the above questions, you must have sensed the need for planning any activity whatsoever. Planning is considered important because it attempts to offset uncertainty by foreseeing the future and bringing about paras preparedness of the happenings in future. In this way it minimizes the chances of mistakes. Second, focuses attention on the objectives or goals of the organization and their attainment. Third, leads to economy in operation through the selection of the best possible course of action. Fourth, helps in controlling the activities by providing measures against which performance can be evaluated. Fifth, help in coordinating the operation of an enterprise since a well considered plan embarrasses and unifies of the divisions of an enterprise. Strategic and operational planning. As already explained above, a plan provides a view of the future by defining the goals or targets of the organization. By themselves, a target would have to meaning useless unless a time limit is fixed for their attainment. Example, our 5-year plans indicates the target to be attained by the end of the respective plans periods which 5 years. In terms of planning, horizon planning can be of two kinds. First, strategic planning, also known as long range planning, has two important elements. First, it covers a longer period of time which may extend from 5 to 20 or more years. A capital intensive industry, example, a public utility service or a company dealing in international market must necessarily plan for a longer period. Strategic planning also take into consideration the totality of activity of the enterprise. In other words, it refers to planning for a total experience over a longer duration. Planning for a duration of 15, 20, or more years is also known as prospective planning. Second, operational planning. Tactical planning or short range planning usually extends over a period of 1 year and is more detailed, while strategic plans indicate the activities to be undertaken or goals to be achieved in general terms and are an instrument of planning and control in the hands of top management. Operational plans are prepared in more specific terms. These plans are directly concerned with operations and deal with the various functional areas of the enterprise like production, marketing, finance, research and development, etc. They guide lower level of manager in their day-to-day activities and serve as a yardstick for measuring their performance. Some major distinction between operational and strategic planning. In the context of focus, operational planning operating problems and strategic planning operating long-term survival development. In the context of objective, operational planning presents profit and strategic planning presents future profits. Constraints. Operational planning presents resource present resource environment. Strategic planning future resource environment. In the context of rewards, operational planning efficiency stability and strategic planning development of future. Information. In the context of information, operational planning present business and strategic planning has future opportunities. In the context of organization, operational planning bureaucratic stable and strategic planning has entrepreneurial and flexible. In the context of leadership, operational planning is conservative and strategic planning is inspire radical. In the context of problem solving, operational planning relies on past experience, low risk, and strategic planning is anticipates find new approaches for high risk. You should remember that the long range plans and short range plans are not mutually exclusive, they overlap, and in fact, an operational plan is a part of the strategic plan in the sense that it contributes to the attainment of some part of the objectives or goals laid down in the strategic plans. All too often the relationship between the operational plan and strategic plan may be forgotten and policies may be framed under operational plan which may prove unfavorable for the attainment of long-term goals. For example, the long term plans may aim at increasing labor productivity as per hour by 50%. However, The operational plan aimed at cost reduction might lead to the curtailment of expenditure on manpower development, which in the long run may actually decrease productivity rather than increase it. Formulating a plan. Preparing a plan is a step by step exercise. Generally speaking, the following four steps will be involved in planning for an enterprise. First is perception of opportunities. Second is establishment of goals. Third is appraisal of planning premises. Fourth is exploring of action paths and selection of a course of action. Perception of opportunities. The first step for you to take while planning is to aware of the opportunities. As you have studied earlier, plans determine a course of action to be adopted today in order to obtain the desired result tomorrow. In order that planning is regarded as effective, it must anticipate the meet and the condition as they develop in future. Forecasting, therefore, is a prerequisite to planning, which, simply stated, means making an intelligent estimate of the condition that will exist during the planned period. For example, a demand forecast which shows the level of demand of a particular product over a period of time is the first step towards production and sales planning in an enterprise. Quite often, existing problems themselves induce managers to search for opportunities. A dealer in fashion goods confronted with the problem of falling sales and profit level will himself be driven to seek new opportunities. Planning required realistic diagnostic of opportunities. Next, establishment of goals. The second step for you is to establish goals which are to be achieved during the specified period. This implies the establishment of goals for a whole enterprise as for also for each of its subunits. Whatever the goals, profit, sales, market shares, it is better if it is measurable, because later you will use these goals to evaluate the performance of the unit or its managers. Various kinds of budgets and cost standards provide a mean of establishing the standards. Appraisal of planning premises. Premises refers to the factor in the environment that affect the achievement of goals. Government policy is one of those factors which can have significant impact, either favorable or unfavorable, or any plan formulated by an enterprise. Take, for example, a recent change in the government policy regarding the conversion of debentures into equity. Until recently, a conversion of debentures into equity was permissible under certain conditions. A large business house which had taken resource to such conversion in the past and be defined past and benefited by it had planned for new project banking upon the conversion of a new series of debentures into equity. Almost an overnight ban on such conversion into equity by the government not only created a crisis situation for that enterprise in respect of the financing of the new project, but it also led to the erosion of confidence of investors in the future plans of the company. As a result, the market prices of equity shares of the company severely declined. You must have guessed that this is the story of Reliance. Planning in any organization rests on several premises, in other words, on assumptions about the expected environment conditions, the plan. Obviously, a change in any one or more assumed condition will necessitate an alteration in the plans. Such assumptions relate to factors which may affect the plan either from within the enterprise or from outside. Accordingly, planning premises may be grouped as external or internal. A brief description of some of the factors that influence the formulation of the plan by an enterprise will follow later. Explore the determined action paths. The final step in the planning function is to explore and evaluate alternative plans of action and determine a specific action plan. Once the goals have been established and the factor or factors affecting the plans taken care of, actual action plan in the form of programs and budgets are formulated. A program shows A. Major steps required to reach an objectives. B. Organizational unit or person responsible for each step. And C. Sequence and timing of each step. A program may be accompanied by the budget, which indicates the financial resources allocated by the organization for the implementation of the plan. Actually, in order to achieve the overall goals of the organization, a number of activities will have to be performed. Each activity is having a separate programs and a separate budget within the overall program and budget. The system under which budget are used for purpose of planning is known as the budgetary planning system. We shall go into some details about the role of budget in a business enterprise. You should, however, remember that budget, in addition to serving as a tool for planning, also serve as a tool for control. This means that the appropriate time your performance will be appraised in relation to the budget which had guided you so far. Budget, therefore, is an instrument of control also. Planning framework. A previously stated planning rests on premises about the expected environmental conditions. Such premises are classified into two categories: A. External, that is, business environment. B. External premises can be several. Example: capital investment made, approved sale, forecast, value, and beliefs of the top management, and the policies adopted, and the given organizational structure. Business environment refers to the totality of economic, political, social, cultural, and technological conditions that affect the formulation of plans of any organization. Since the environment is primarily looked upon from the point of view of its impact on the demand for the product or service offered by the organization, changes in the environment may have favorable or unfavorable consequences for the organization. A rise in per capita income may signify more disposable income and indicate more purchasing power in the hands of consumers. On the other hand, political stability has an undesirable impact on the plans of a business enterprise. The government policies of regulation and control has also of taxation and providing or withdrawal incentives all affect the nature future planning by a business enterprise. What can be produced or sold by the business may be subject to government control. The difficulty in business planning arises because of its impossible to forecast the character and effect of such controls. Again, in an industry where technological changes are many and rapid, planning on the basis of old technology will spell doom for the expertise. In order to succeed, managers today are expected to keep themselves abreast of technological changes taking place in the industry and the plan the industry or that basis. Capital Investment Committee. Business enterprise today needs large capital investment, and the investment once made in fixed assets tend to have long run influence on its future plan, as the investment made cannot be recouped except through use. While developing plans, you should first assess carefully your own resources and commitment made, and adjust the plan in such a manner that the existing resources are more productively utilized. Sales forecast, which are a projection of expected sales over a period of provide a framework on which plans of most enterprises are based. Since sales gives rise to revenue which sustain the enterprise, business enterprise tends to attach a great deal of importance to the framing of such forecasts. A forecast of rising sales over a long term would indicate the need of the expansion of the facilities. On the other hand, a decline should alert the management to look into the cause of decline and initiate corrective action. Generally speaking, making a sales forecast is a two-step process. First is making industry make industry wise. Generally speaking, making a sales forecast is a two-step process. First is making industry wise demand forecast, and second is make sales forecast for a specific company. For example, if you are in automobile business producing two-wheelers, first estimate the total demands or two-wheelers by types, and then estimate your market share and the demand for the two-wheelers you are producing or intend to produce. There are several methods of making demand forecast and sales projections which you will study elsewhere. It will be interesting for you to know that some of the most interesting and important contributions in management science are associated with the planning function. Values and policies of top management. The plans formulated and action taken by managers in an organization are immensely affected by the values attached to offer alternative courses of action and policies pursued in each case. Value defines what is good and what is not good. A top management holding a good belief in not likely to plan for something which they regard as not good. A case in point, a monthly magazine, Kalyan, devoted to the propagation of religious literature. It has been the basic policy of the top management of that magazine not to accept any advertisement. While planning for increased revenue, advertisement are never considered as an alternative source. Organizational structure. Plans are implemented through an organizational structure which consists of people arranged in a hierarchy, each one responsible for the performance of a specific task in coordination with others. Quite offers Quite often, it may be found that particular plan drawn up cannot be satisfactorily implemented simply because the structure is such that while on the one hand there is duplication of effort, on the other hand there is nobody to look apart another part of the job. In almost every kind of large scale enterprise, example can be found there. Well conceived strategic plans were thwarted by an organizational structure that delayed the execution of the plan or gave priority to wrong set of consideration. While drawing up a plan, you should give attention to the needs of the organization, not only in terms of number and kind of personnel required, but also to the change in the organizational structure required for the effective implementation of the plan. Planning practices in Indian organization. Several researchers have looked into the planning practices in Indian enterprises. Some of these studies are reported here. Richmond and Copen, 1972. Virtual all of the medium sized and larger companies surveyed established at least some quantitative objectives or target on an annual or short term basis. These generally include profitability, sales, and production objectives. Most also had some kind of growth objectives and some general guidelines to help determine those areas in which the firm would concentrate or expand its efforts. However, few defined longer term objectives clearly. Only one of the Indian firms surveyed, a drug producer, did a truly thoughtful job of developing a long-term growth and development model. It identified explicitly a desirable position to strive for several years in the future and designed specific strategies to reach it. These firms established specific 3-year and 5-year goals for market share and profitability. In general, planning process and plans at firm studied in India focused on the short run and in particular on short term projection of monthly, weekly and daily operating data. Planning document consisted mostly of sales forecast and some kind of operating budgets. However, these were prepared more for control purposes than for future planning. The only planning activity found in the most of the major firms was the translation of the sales forecast into requirements of imported raw materials and the ordering and stockpiling of these items. In only a few cases were accurate forecasts of capital requirement or productive capacities made. Next is Bhatia 1981. The research study on the objective of a sample of 65 out of the 251 giant companies listed by Research Bureau of Economic Times revealed that only 45% of these have explicitly defined objectives and 55% do not have expressed objectives. Moreover, out of those which have specified their objectives, 17% feel that their objectives are confidential and not to be divulged. The above evidence indicates that the Indian business organizations, especially the large sized, do realize the need and urgency of planning their operations over longer period of time. Many, however, still consider planning over longer period of a waste of effort primarily because of a larger meaning of uncertainties prevailing in the Indian environment. The section 14.7 at the end of this unit contains an exact from the chairman's speech of a fair large Indian company, which is indicative for how Indian business look at the planning function and how they proceed to take advantage of the opportunities available in the environment. You should read it carefully and answer the question given at the end. Summary of planning process. Let us now summarize the ideas contained in this section. The function of a management starts with planning and organizing. A plan defines the goals which are to be attained during a specified period of time in future. Planning involves a vision of the future. The process of planning, therefore, in a mental exercise involving a choice among alternatives, goals, programs, and means of the achievement. Every manager in an organization has a role to planning through the character and breadth of planning might differ from manager to manager. A plan encompasses a period of time in which it expected that goals would be attained. This period, known as planning horizon, can be short or long. A short term plan generally covers a period of 1 year and is detailed and much more specific than a long term plan in defining the goals or targets. The process of formulating a long term plan is known as strategic planning, through which an organizing defines its long term goals. In formulating a plan, a number of sequential steps are involved. In this first place, you have to look for the opportunities. Scanning for environment and forecasting will enable you to perceive the opportunities that exist. Secondly, you specified the goals that you would like to attain during the planning horizon in measurable terms. The third step involves an appraisal of those premises on which planning of an organization rests. Such premises can be external to the enterprise or internal to it. In general, the economic, socio-culture, and technological environment tend to influence from outside that what manager will plan and how. Among the internal premises, that is, factors that influence the plan from within, are the capital investment which has already been made or committed, the forecast of sales which has been approved as the basis for planning, the value and belief of top management, and the capability of the organizational structure of the company. The final step in planning is to lay down an action plan in terms of programs and pursue which specific targets. Research studies relating to planning function in Indian business generally indicates a low importance given to this function. Through sales forecasting and budgeting is common, long-term planning is done by only few large enterprises.